Do you want your business to grow faster? Are you open to new and out-of-the-box ways to drive revenues and increase value? How do you imagine the most successful entrepreneurs and business leaders double, triple, or expand their businesses tenfold or more? This is a weekly podcast featuring conversations with business owners, executives, and leaders as we reveal behind-the-scenes details that give you, our listeners, the confidence to pursue your own deal-driven growth. On the show, we discuss a huge variety of deals, everything from large, complex mergers and acquisitions, capital raising, joint ventures, strategic alliances, real estate, affiliate and sponsorship deals, and more, including smaller deals that you can do without significant capital. My name is Corey Kupfer, and I've been supporting deal-driven growth for businesses for over 35 years as a successful entrepreneur, professional negotiator, and attorney. My goal is to help you strategize, plan for, find, and complete deals that will help your company grow faster. Welcome to the DealQuest Podcast. Let's get started. Scott Bushkie is managing partner and founder of Cornerstone Business Services. With more than 25 years in the M&A industry, Scott is a recognized leader in the field, providing exit strategies, sell and buy-side transitions, and valuation services in the lower middle market. Over the years, Scott has successfully executed hundreds of transactions, domestically and internationally, working with private equity firms, family offices, strategic buyers, both public and private. Scott has the trust and respect of CPA and financial advisor alliances, investment banks, and other professional services firms around the M&A marketplace. Scott, welcome to the DealQuest Podcast.
Thank you, Corey. Great to be here.
So Scott, listen, obviously you have such extensive experience in M&A. You've built such a successful, phenomenal firm. And we're going to talk about the M&A market and the services you provide and what you're seeing out there. But before we get to all of that, I want to take you back to when you were a little kid growing up, maybe 8, 10, 12 years old. What did you want to be? Because I'm sure, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm guessing it probably wasn't an M&A professional at that stage. But you tell me.
No, the first one was a pilot. I think I was 8 years old and went on my first flight down to Florida. He could go to Disney, of course, out of Wisconsin, and thought that was the coolest thing in the world. Actually wrote the pilot and he wrote me back about how much money he made and everything else. And I was dialed in there for a while and then moved on to some other things, but always, ironically, early on, I did love sales. So I was the kid with the lemonade stand. I went to a Lutheran grade school and their big fundraiser was selling wrapping paper and Christmas cards, everything else. And most kids hated doing it. And my parents would have to come find me in the dark because I was going up and down the streets of little Horicon, Wisconsin, knocking on old ladies' doors and selling them all wrapping paper and things like that.
So you, like me, had a very early entrepreneurial spirit, which
yes, absolutely.
Which is interesting. In my case, I didn't know where it came from because both my parents were not entrepreneurs. We had no entrepreneurs in my family except for an uncle who I only sort of met late, a little later. So I don't know about you if you had any models, but I'm always interested in how we come to our entrepreneurial journey. Some people have models, some people don't.
Yeah, my parents were my mom was the school teacher. My dad worked in corporate America for 28 years at John Deere. So no, it was my mom's parents owned a music business back in the day, and they picked accordions to really go all in on, and that wasn't quite the right play. But that's where I think I got it from.
I love it. One more question looking back. What was your first deal of any type? It could have been something small when you were younger or early in your career on the M&A side, whatever comes to mind.
Probably, I sold Cutco cutlery door to door in college. And so selling that, and it was to pay a couple speeding tickets that I got in college. And there's a reason I got into it. But it was one of those things that was just kind of, again, fun and the challenge. And the first weekend I went out, I sold Friday, Saturday, went back to school on Sunday, called in my numbers. And the guy's like, hey, they trained us on Wednesday. Like, you probably won't sell anything, but we'll learn what you could do next. And I called in the numbers, and the guy calls me back and he said, is that what you sell? I go, yeah. He's like, well, people do this for a living. You're like, no. And there was a statewide competition for a week and you won it in your first 2.5 days. And so I got a big Cutco cutlery trophy that I ended up putting on my boss's car as he drove away and never found it again. So I lost the trophy, but I did have it in my hands for about 10 minutes before he drove away.
So it's really interesting because, one of the things we make a distinction about here is, and it's funny, I literally just before recording this podcast, I was having a conversation with some folks about the difference between organic growth and inorganic growth, deal-driven growth versus things like organic growth, which is like sales, marketing, providing great products and services, and how does inorganic or deal-driven growth differ? But so you've come to the deal-driven growth, the inorganic growth side through a penchant actually for sales, which is much more on the organic growth side, right? Yeah. So it's an interesting evolution. So how did you move from this natural connection to sales at a young age where a lot of people are very uncomfortable doing that? I guess you could be in a business where you'd be doing sales and marketing, right? If that was an inclination, but how did you end up moving to the inorganic, side of the ledger, so to speak?
Yeah, and that was my major, was marketing with emphasis in sales in college at Whitewater. And I've always loved sales. And I think it's because my dad was my coach through grade school growing up. And we were I'm one of the oldest of three boys. And just the competitive nature that we had in our household was like nothing else. And sales was competitive. And you could keep score. And I just loved solving problems that other people couldn't do. And so I did the Cutco thing. And the year after that, I ran my own franchise, did college between my junior and senior year of college pro painters, and then went out and got a corporate job for 2 years as a district manager, only because no one had ever been hired by Aldi to run 4 stores out of college at University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. So it was more of a bet than anything, because I did not have any penchant of, please God, let me be in the grocery industry at some point in my life. But then I wanted to get back into sales, and just through dumb luck, I was looking at real estate, and I wanted to get into big ticket sales, something that I could really make a difference in. And my youngest brother's best friend's uncle was in this business, and that's what got me from Milwaukee up to Green Bay, Wisconsin. So the good thing was, I always tell people I was probably just too darn dumb to know I should never got into this industry as young as I did. But through sheer willpower and 60,000 hours later, and about 45 national, international conferences later, and hundreds of regional conferences, just absorbing and learning and giving back. And we've really developed, our Assurance 360 process. We've gone from myself and my assistant to a team of 18, and we're still a small company, but in the world of investment banking, we're actually one of the biggest firms in the Midwest that focus on this low middle market that we'll talk about later.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into a definition, because, you hear terms out there like low middle market, Main Street businesses, large, and, generally, there's a general alignment on what that means, but people have different definitions. So what is that niche for you? How do you define it in terms of company size, deal size, even a multiple, whatever it is?
Yeah, so what we look at is a couple of different things. First one, revenue. So most of our clients are that 5 to 150 million revenue range. EBITDA is probably the easiest, cleanest, but not everybody knows their EBITDA. But usually that's a normalized EBITDA of 1 to 15 million.
Yeah.
And enterprise value, like you said, there's a lot of business brokers that do more Main Street type deals, bars, restaurants, brick and mortar retail, service companies. Those deals are usually done in the $0 to $2, $0 to $3 million space. And then what I found when I started Cornerstone is then the next big tranche really isn't to where these bigger investment banks go, Corey, we're not even going to get out of bed and talk to you unless we're going to make $1 million or more in a success fee.
Right.
And I said, okay, so there's a bunch up here, there's a bunch down here. I said, who's taking care of everything here? That 2 or 3 million to 50, 75 million enterprise value. And what I found in Green Bay, when I found in Wisconsin and regionally and nationally, was it is the most underserved marketplace out there. And I said, well, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I think I found where my niche is going to be. So we're going to bring that investment banking level quality, what a $150 million enterprise value client would want, of limited clientele, high touch, high closing rate, a team to work for them. We're going to work and build that and bring it down to a $10 million client or a $20 million client. And that's kind of how Cornerstone was started, and the space that we play in nationwide and internationally today.
Yeah, and you're so right. I mean, the good firms in that low middle market space are few and far between. And what traditionally happens to a lot of businesses in that space and in the past, is that they're too big. They know they're too big for the Main Street business brokers, because and I'm not saying anything disparaging.
It's just a different model. That you know how to do a very good job of finding the individual, come in and take out the owner, put a new individual in. Exactly. Where we're going after private equity, family offices, strategic buyers, and everything. Exactly. It's just a different model.
It's a totally different business model, totally different deal. And you're right. They're mainly focused on owner operators, and some of them do a really good job on that Main Street business level, but they don't have it. It's totally different. So they're not set up to do something of this. And then, like you said, on the upper end, the bigger investment banking firms aren't even going to look at you. So this market was left where either they'd be working with a business broker who's trying to stretch, but up and really doesn't, isn't going to do a great job on it because they don't have the experience with it, or they're trying to figure it out on their own, which obviously has its issues, or maybe occasionally they know somebody and trying to call in a favor at one of the bigger players, in which case they're not going to get the attention, on the deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've seen. It's like, oh, we'll let our second year grad student cut their teeth on this deal. Well, hey, this is my baby. This is my 30 years of my life. And we'll give it to some 22-year-old and let's see how they do with it, or 24-year-old.
Exactly right. So yeah, finding quality firms in that space is so crucial. And there are so many deals that are done, in that. So, I want to go to say that's an interesting point, because it's also in terms of that space and the mentality of the entrepreneurs and executive teams that run these kind of companies. The bigger companies and the quickly scaled companies, they are more often in a mindset, whether it comes later or whether it's even from day one, of preparing for exit, right? If you're looking to build, I've got an entrepreneurial organization buddy of mine in my forum, who, it's one of many examples, has a cutting edge robotic construction company, whenever, venture back, et cetera. I mean, from day one, he knows that he's looking to build this thing to exit, right?
Right.
Most companies in the middle market don't really start, with that mentality. And then many of them never get there, right? And so one of the things I always talk about that I believe, like, there's a difference in mindset from being an entrepreneur to being an employee. And again, I don't have any judgment on that. I think know thyself, but there's a difference in mentality. There's also a difference in mentality of a deal maker versus, and you can be a very successful entrepreneur without being a deal maker. You just be great at sales and marketing and organic growth. And many businesses build successfully that way. I think they're missing out on this other bucket of growth opportunity through acquisitions or joint ventures, strategic alliances, licensing, whatever it is. But, what have you seen about the companies that, and founders, et cetera, who have that mentality, or when they come to you, like, how do you help them understand, that mentality shift to be able to prepare their companies and think like a deal maker as opposed to just an entrepreneur building something organically?
Yeah, you're so right. Because, Corey, as you see, like, you look at a private equity group, they don't buy a company until they know how they're going to build value and who they're going to sell it to, almost. And a business owner gets in, they're excited in this low middle market, and they take off like a rocket. And then they go, okay, I paid down my debt. I don't have any more bank governance or whatever it might be. And I've kind of had a good lifestyle here. And they're in this, call it a marathon. But there's no signs. There's no coaches. There's no water table. They're just on their own out there. And all of a sudden, what happens, unfortunately, is that all of a sudden somebody goes, oh man, I got a tweak in my hammy, or I can't run anymore. I've got a side ache and it's not fun anymore. And I got to get out. It's time to sell. And that's unfortunately what happens is most business owners in this space do not sell because, boy, things are going so good. I could get a crazy multiple for my business right now. It's not, and usually not even a business issue. Most sides of this space is a personal issue.
Yes.
I want to retire is obviously number one with all the boomers coming through. But unfortunately, number two is I'm burnt out. I'm tired. It's not fun anymore. I've had health issues. Number three.
Yeah.
And when you're tired, as you know, to sell a business is not like selling your house. It's not like, today's market where I'm going to sell my house. I'll get a realtor. They put a sign out there, in 3 days it's sold. And I get 30 days. I fill up the U-Haul, I throw them the keys and I drive away and I don't have to do anything again. Ideally, there is a direct correlation because so many businesses don't sell. And the ones that do sell, the correlation is typically they start planning earlier. To your point, they think that mindset of how do I want to make this something that's valuable and transferable, not just something that I can take cash out of. And then they start building a team around them. Who's going to do, who's the investor banker I'm going to work with? Who's not just the attorney, keep your attorney, but who's your M&A attorney? Yep. Who's going to be the financial advisor that's going to take this sum of $10, $20, $30 million? Is it the same person you work with? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. What about the exit planner? What about environmental? Whatever it might be, and building this team around them. And they don't know what they don't know. Most of them don't have boards of directors, even advisors. And it's just, them and their spouse going through this, and they've done extremely well for themselves. But I've talked to people that go, man, you're making $2 million, but it's not a transferable company because you are the company. And when you go away, well, I don't want to stick around. If I'm sellable, I'll just keep it. Well, then keep it for as long as you want to keep it. But at some point, know that you're not going to have this big payday at the end. And that's what we try to really educate people on, is to say, hey, look, the earlier you start, the earlier you build a team around this. I mean, we did a movie on it called M&A. It's the first motion picture rated documentary on mergers and acquisitions. And it's trying to educate those business owners, because the earlier they can start having what we call the conversation. It's not about the birds and the bees. This is about how are you going to get out of your business? When are you going to get out of your business? What are your options? Most people go, well, I've been either going to give it to my kids or sell it to the competitor out the street. Both could be absolutely the worst options possible, depending on several factors. There's 9 or 10 different options that you have that most people don't even know about. And that's what we try to do, is just educate the owner so they start making these well-informed decisions, because it's just this marathon, and all of a sudden things start to tail off because they're tired. Well, guess what? The buyer doesn't care what you did when you were really strong and you were kicking things off. In fact, they don't even care what you did 3 years ago anymore. What they care about is, what is the last 12 months? So if you go, well, I've run this company for 30 years and I held on 1 year too long, it's 3%. I did 97% right, but I held on 1 year too long. That could cost you 40% of the value of your company. It can make your company not saleable at all. Well, because once it does this, they smell blood in the water, and it's like, hey, I don't know, I'm going to offer less because I don't know where the bottom is before I can turn this thing around. And unfortunately, that's why so many businesses, those stats out there, especially the low middle market or smaller, are 20 to 30% successfully sell.
Yeah.
I think if you went to school and you go, hey, 30%, that's a passing grade. It's like, it's insane, but that's what's going on out there right now. That's why we're trying to educate through the book and the movie and everything else that we're doing in podcasts like this, is that if business owners could just learn a couple of key things, they would have so much of a better chance of selling their company. And that's the crazy thing, is that I started this thing 25 years ago, and I'm like, oh, they're making those mistakes. But now with all the knowledge out there, Google, you can Google anything in the world, they're still making the same mistakes because, again, it's confidential. I don't want to tell anybody that I'm thinking about selling my company. So I'm not going to talk to anybody, and I'm just going to try to figure this thing out on my own. And if I get taken by some big national firm that tells me what I want to hear, and I pay them $45,000 and they way over promise and they don't even deliver a buyer for 2 years, I'm not telling anybody that either, because do I want to look like an idiot to my buddies? It's like, so everybody just quietly tries to figure it out, and they don't know what they don't know. So that's why we work with a lot of trusted advisors and partner together to help, increase those odds of success of closing.
Yeah. So listen, this is a great segue to a topic I know you're really interested in talking about, which is this concept of the unsolicited offer, right? So let's take that classic example you talked about, where the entrepreneur's getting burnt out. They're tired of the business. They've been grinding for a long time, and, they're making a good living, but it's, or they find out they have a health issue, whatever, right? And now suddenly they get this unsolicited offer, and it seems like perfect timing, right?
Oh yeah.
Some big company or whatever it is coming in. Maybe they're doing a roll up in the industry. Maybe it's a competitor down the street or in the next town, or whoever it is, right? And they come, and now, especially for those entrepreneurs who are either burnt out or have that health issue or close to retirement, haven't done anything, whatever, this seems like a godsend, right? Oh my God, this is perfect, right? Somebody's interested in buying me. Why, and listen, I mean, the way I've described it, it sounds like this is fantastic. They should just go negotiate that deal and take that offer. Tell me why people shouldn't do that.
Yeah, there is a reason why, these buyers, strategic, private equity, family house, all of them, why they spend a bunch of time, energy, and a bunch of money to try to get to you, Mr. Business Owner, before Corey, Mr. Business Owner, talks to someone like us at an investment bank. Because they clearly know that I'm going to talk to 100 people, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and if I can find one, if I can get one to buy it, I get to catch them on the right day, I know as a buyer, I am going to get the absolute best deal I can get, because it's one-on-one. I've done this hundreds of times. Somebody told me like this once. It was Vern Hardish from EO, a founder of EO. He said, think of it like this. You're a great athlete, Corey, and you may be a basketball star, whatever it was, and you go, hey, let's all go golfing. You've never golfed before in your life, but you're a great athlete, one of the best. And you go, you know what? I'm feeling pretty good today. I'm going to rent some clubs. I'm taking on the Club Pro. And I'm going to bet my business, my income stream, and pretty much 85% of my net worth on this one round of golf.
Yeah.
Well, he's played that course thousands of times. He's a professional. He's taken lessons. He's taught lessons. This is all that he's done for 30 years. And you're going to pick up a club for the first time and think you're going to win. And that's what happens with business owners, is that they go, this is my baby. I'm emotionally tied to this. It's my biggest financial transaction in my life. And just because I know my business better than anybody else, running a business and running your specific business is completely different than selling a business, especially when it's your own business, when you're so emotionally tied up in this. And buyers prey on that. That, no buyer gets a bonus for paying higher than what they can or should. And so they tell you exactly what they want to hear. Oh, Corey, yes, you got a great business here. We're going to take care of you. Hey, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to buy a boat down in Florida. I'm going to get a place in Colorado. Oh, yeah, we should talk about that now. And they're getting you picturing you spending the money already. And they might tell you what you want to hear verbally. They might even tell you what you want to hear in an offer. And then going, okay, now once they sign the letter of intent, that's all they want to get to is that signed letter of intent. Because in the letter of intent, it's all non-binding except for the confidentiality agreement and the exclusivity agreement. And now they've got you locked in for 90 days. Now it's one-on-one. You can't bring in an investment banker because they can't do anything for you anymore. You've already set the deal on the table. You can't bring in any other buyers. And now they've got you. And what I've seen groups do, and some are very ethical. There's a lot that aren't, just like any industry. They'll ask for stuff and grind you. Oh, we'll get this done in 60 days, no problem. 6 months later, they're still asking you questions. And they said, oh, yeah, we told you to pay a 5 multiple or a 6 multiple, but your EBITDA was 2.5 when what you told us. And through the QV and everything else, now we're seeing this dip. And now it's $2 million. So we're not going to pay 5 times 2.5, pay 5 times 2 or 1.8 or whatever it might be. And this is at the 11th hour. Now you've just spent 6 months giving them all this information. You probably missed key things with your family. Your business is going off because your eyes off the ball. You're emotionally drained, and they know they've got you. And I've got a couple of examples. Like one was a financial advisor that tried to bring us in. They said, "Hey, my client just got a call from a private equity group that's rolling up an industry who's in the jewelry manufacturing space. So he's doing about $23 million in sales, about $6 million to the bottom line, obviously, or $7 million to the $7 million normalized EBITDA." And so we did some high-level research, and we thought, oh, man, it's probably at least a 7 times with those kind of margins. Space is rolling up. So it's 7 times 7, 49 to call it a $50 million company. We tried to get a call set up. 10 days later, the financial advisor finally calls me back and goes, hey, I couldn't get hold of my client. I now found out why. In 10 days, he went from a phone call from a buyer that's interested to a signed letter of intent. And I said, there's nothing I can do. And I said, well, tell me you got a good deal. I knew he did, but I was just curious. I go, well, yeah, I said, I can't tell you the number. But he goes, the multiple was about a 4.2. So 4 times 7, 28, but we were talking 50. And that was market. Typically, we get above market when you bring all these buyers together and competing against each other. So he left $20 million on the table only because he was tired and burnt out and just wanted to be done. Right. And that's if it closed at the number he started. Once you get a letter of intent, it's only going down in diligence. It's never going to go up no matter what you do.
That's right.
And so we've had another deal just last quarter that we worked on. We have been introduced by the attorney and got in. We met with them. And they're like, yeah, we think if we work with an investment banker, we're going to work with you guys. And of course, that was on a Friday. On Monday, nope, we can do it ourselves. We don't need anybody. Well, they got an offer because they said, look, we've got the 2 biggest firms in our industry, both interested in our business. And we think we know them. They know us. We can work the deal. So I said, what if I can? I'm here as a resource if you need me. The first offer came in $25 million. And I knew it was low. And I said, look, at least let us do our estimate of value just to help them understand what we see as market and why the other offer was coming in. And we did that. We thought 43 and change was the number. We thought that was market. Well, the other offer came in at 36, but it was 26 million at close, right next to the other one at 25 million at close, 5 in an earn-out, which they may or may not get, and 5 in a seller note. And I said, will you please let us go to market? I promise you we will more than pay for our fee. They finally allowed us to go. And again, on a Friday, they said yes. We go to a limited group. On Monday, they said you get one buyer to go to. I'm like, okay, we're going to, So with our process, we created urgency, we created scarcity, even with just that one buyer, because they didn't know how many buyers we're going out to.
Sure.
Say, hey, look, there's a market out there. And we created offensive moves of why they shoot. Also defensive moves of, hey, if you don't do this, guess who's coming in, going to knock on your back door and make your life hell for the next several years while you're trying to build this thing up and eventually sell it, because it was a strategic play backed by private equity. And long story short, in 45 days, now this is much quicker than most deals get done.
Sure.
45 days.
Don't create unrealistic expectations for most
deals.
deals.
This is a weight loss guy who's 500 pounds and now he's got 6-pack of abs. Results not typical every time, but in 45 days, 25 and 36, we got a deal done at $51.3 million.
Nice.
And that same group went to them a year earlier and said, we want to buy your company, Corey. We love your company, but our private equity firm mandated we could not pay more than a 5 multiple. Guess what they paid? An 8.25 multiple, because they knew they needed the deal. And that's the kind of stuff that it's amazing how many times, and I've got story after story, small companies, big companies, that if we actually put together a process in the last about 2.5 years, just catered to these unsolicited offers, because there's so many more buyers than there are sellers, and there's record amount of money out there, 2.5 trillion globally, all looking to buy companies. That's what every day they wake up to buy companies. And so we actually put together this process. And everyone we talked to was like scared, like, man, Corey's been, this buyer isn't bad. It's not great. It's not bad. Should I sell? What if, I don't want to scare, if you guys bring other buyers, you're going to scare off Corey. With our process, the way we run it, we keep Corey, the buyer, warm, the low ball offer warm. Now, once we lost that buyer, again, anything can happen. Never once we lost it. Not once since we've done those deals has that buyer been the buyer that ultimately buys the company. Because they know, hey, we're going to sit around, because if we can get it for our price, it's a good deal for us. Oh, you're going to get market or above market? Yeah, we're out to get the next sucker. We're done. We're moving on. So there's, so if you're a business owner and you get somebody that's interested, talk to an investment banker, because there's so many things you could do. And if we ever get one where we say, hey, the market's 43 and you got offer 45, take it. We can't do better, because the last thing we want to do is tell you not to take the $43 million offer and then bring an offer for 35. We look like morons, and that word gets out, so, but it's, or if you're a trusted advisor and you hear your client talking about, which almost anybody doing, 5 to 10 million in sales is getting calls. And because there's just so limited good quality companies, talk to an investment banker, get some advice, understand what the market is. And then typically by bringing other buyers to the table, you create that urgency, that scarcity. And that's what we do very well at Cornerstone, to drive up those values.
Yeah, and you raised the biggest thing I was going to raise, that you beat me to it on, because I hear that all the time, right? Because obviously as an attorney, we do a huge amount of M&A. I'll get that from client. They'll say, oh, I got this great offer from, whatever, unsolicited. And I'll say, well, how do you know it's a great offer?
Right.
And almost always there are obviously some of my more sophisticated clients who maybe been in the market looking, whatever, no. But for a lot of these folks, they're like, they don't know what the market is. They think it's a great offer only because it's more money than they ever thought, that they would get the company. Doesn't mean that the market's not twice that, or 50% higher, 20% higher, whatever it is, right? It seems like a lot of money to them, especially if they're somebody who started from, from nothing, or never was successful beyond whatever they imagined when they were growing up, right? So, and I'll say to them, listen, it's great you have this offer. That's great. They're stalking us, right? But you should get a professional involved, right? You should get and have them run a process. And the first thing that they'll say to me is, well, I'm afraid of losing this buyer.
Right.
Exactly. And you already answered it, but I really want to highlight this because, you said, and again, past performance doesn't guarantee future results. We get
that. Absolutely. Anything can happen for sure.
Right. But you haven't lost that buyer, and they haven't ended up to be the ultimate buyer. And you're right. People have to understand that these professional buyers, and again, some of them are very, very good. They're not being unethical per se. They're just looking for the best deal.
Yeah, if you go and buy a house or a car, you're not going to go, well, you want 20, you want $200,000? I'll pay 120 for the car because you look like you're a really nice guy.
That's right.
I want to be
right. Everybody wants to get the best deal. And, and these professional buyers have corporate development people whose job it is to do exactly what you're talking about, right, and find good deals for the company. And they might be very ethical. Otherwise, it might be a good place to work. They may honor their word, but they're looking to get the best economic deal that they can, not even to mention the ones who are unscrupulous. But it's like, looking for an off-market real estate. On the buy side, you're always looking for the off-market deal, right?
It sounds like you don't want to be that off-market deal.
Right, exactly. So I think that's really important, and not to be in that scarcity mentality, because the truth is, even if you were to lose that buyer, the truth is most of the time they, with the right professional helping you, they will stay in the process. If you get the right professional involved, even if you did lose that buyer, there are other buyers out there that are going to pay more anyway. So,
finding buyers is not the problem right now. There's buyers and there's money. And it's just bringing the right buyers to the table and presenting the right picture for your company, putting that company in the best possible light, not just being reactive, being proactive, put the whole package together. So now people know that, hey, you're working with a professional, you got your stuff together. It's much better than piecemealing a bunch of stuff. And then just, a couple, here's my QuickBooks or whatever else it is. And what do you think it's worth? And, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I can't believe somebody thinks my company's worth something, and it is, it's your baby. So it's like, oh, you got such a cute baby. yes, you should be flattered by that. But at the end of the day, you get one chance to sell your business. You get one chance. There's like golf. There's no mulligan. Let me try it again. You get one chance. And this is in the film we had someone we interviewed, and the woman's like, you can make a wrong hire, you can lose a customer, you can miss this, have a terrible sales presentation. You can all recover from all of those different things. This is the one thing you can't F up, because you get one chance, and after that, it's done. And that's what we see some business owners try to do. It's like, well, I'll try it myself. And then if it doesn't work, then I'll call Corey, the investment banker. Well, you put a price out there, number one. Now you set the ceiling. You burned a bunch of buyers by asking too much or whatever it is. And now it's like, now you're damaged goods. And even a really good investment banker might have trouble recreating that marketplace. So there is a harm to you going out by yourself. It's like, hey, let's bring all the buyers together. Let's bring the right team together, and let's all, work in the client's best interest. And the craziest one I've ever heard, and I was not a part of this, but I just was talking with a financial advisor a month ago. He said his client sold their marketing agency, I think it's a digital marketing agency, and he must have had something special about it because he didn't know it. So he was excited. He sold for $10 million. He was like, I got no assets. I just sold for $10 million. This is amazing. 1 year later, 365 days later, that private equity group sold it for $150 million.
Right.
I would just throw up.
I'm sure they didn't
think about that.
I'm sure even though if they added value, I'm sure they didn't add 140.
They did not add $140 million of value. No. So they knew something that was scalable, or they could take it somewhere that he or she had no clue about, that if they would have worked with an investment banker, could have possibly uncovered that, hey, you've got something special here. Or again, let's bring some buyers together, because obviously that company would have paid $75 million and still thought they got a good deal if they sold it for $150 a year later. I mean, think about that. It's like, hey, I'm done. I'm getting out of the industry. I'm sitting on an island after that deal from a private equity standpoint. So yeah, these people are all, like you said, there's some bad actors in every industry, but there's a lot of good buyers. But again, their job is still to get the best price for their company or their P firm or whatever else it is. And they all look the same. A lot of them all sound the same. They're all going to say good things. They're not going to act like jerks in the courting phase. After that LOI is signed, it gets a little bit more interesting in a lot of cases, or after the deal. And that's where we just try to help level that playing field by bringing that knowledge and expertise that they get to go through. And that's what we work, most times we work with is first-time sellers. Very, very sophisticated, great people, great business owners, but first-time sellers that are typically, this is their retirement play in most cases. And retirement could be X, you live in Wisconsin and shoveling snow, or it could be Y, down in Florida, wherever else they want to go and enjoying the winters in someplace warm. So that's what we get excited about, is kind of really changing people's lives as a company here.
Let's take a break from the show for a minute so I can tell you about an incredible resource my team and I have put together for you. Secrets of Deal-Driven Growth, Creative Ways to Grow Your Business Even in Challenging Times, is a powerful ebook that helps you take DealQuest podcast episodes and apply them to your own life and business. This is the ideal tool for anyone looking for creative ways to grow as deal makers, and you can get yours now. It's as easy as heading to coreycupford.com/workbook and downloading your copy. While you're there, you can also consider joining our dynamic deal-driven community of founders, experts, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. Now back to the show.
Going back to the comment you made about that there is a cost of, like, you don't really get a do-over in this industry. There's a cost of doing it wrong in the first place, whether it's trying to do it on your own or working with the right professional. I want to elaborate on that as well, because there's a couple of other things that happen in addition to the fact that you burned the buyer pool and things like that. First of all, there's a risk word gets out, so now there's and other people know you're in play, right? Also, word gets out too early to your employees, and you start losing. I've seen plenty of companies, you start losing talent because people get worried, right? If you don't have an internal communication plan on a definitive direction you're going in a deal or whatever, and a way that you can incentivize those employees to stay on and show them how it's going to be good for them after the deal, we all know that people in general, and certainly people, one of the things as entrepreneurs we tend to be better at is dealing with uncertainty, but employees are less good at that. And when they think things might be in play, but there's no clear direction, and certainly if there's a failed attempt that they're available, or you have risk of losing talent. There's so many downsides to doing this wrong. So I really want to just reemphasize the point you made and bring up a couple of points around that.
Yeah, Corey, you are so right, because ironically, if confidentiality gets breached, it's not from the investment banker. It's typically not from the buyers. Because what we'll say, if you've got a good competitor, or private equity knows that they can't breach it, because if they do, they get blackballed, and this is how they make their living. So they're usually pretty darn good about it. Companies are pretty good now, but if you've got an unethical competitor and they deal unethically, well, why would you think they're going to do anything different in this process? So we usually blacklist them and keep them out of the process, or we to the very end and go, okay, we've got these offers. Do we really need them to come in or not? But most times it comes from the seller. The seller well, don't say anything. And then they go to the bar after here, go have dinner with their buddy going, where were you at? Oh, I was just at Cornerstone's office. I'm selling my company. Well, don't say anything. Well, okay. Then they go home and tell their spouse or the client's doing it themselves. The business owner had a certain routine he or she had for the last several years. And all of a sudden now it's different. And they're asking for weird information. And why are our competitors coming to our office? Or, and it's just like, people are only so gullible for so long. And yes, if the word gets out, the risk of employees leaving, and for whatever reason, again, in the low middle market, the vast majority of employees keep their jobs because it's so hard to find employees. That's part of what you're buying, is those trained, talented employees. But again, you're right. Employees think, oh, there's something going on. I'm going to lose my job for sure. We're all going to lose our jobs, because they see the big picture when these mega $billion deals get done and, oh my gosh, 20,000 people lost their jobs. Well, that was 2% of the workforce, but that's what they see. Or, hey, my competitors also start poaching our clients. Corey's been my guy. Well, I heard Corey's selling. He's not even going to be around for another 6 months. Well, if that's the case, yeah, why don't I give you a shot? And so competitors, customers, it just goes right down the line that nothing good happens if the word gets out that you're selling. It's like zero. So you want to keep it confidential. We can talk about when you start to tell some people on your team, your leadership team, or even a couple people, but you typically do not want to tell the shop floor, the manufacturing space, or whatever it might be. Because again, people's minds go to oh my gosh, this is a good, exciting, I might get a raise, or it's all negative. I'm going to lose my job, or they're going to cut my pay, or they're going to trash my benefits, or whatever it is, which is typically not the case, but that's perception's reality. And that's what happens. So yeah, everything we do, there's always a confidentiality tied to it. So we're even with people go, oh yeah, just email me, call me, always email me, in my work email. No, let's set up a personal email for you. I don't have one. We'll set one up for you. We'll show you how to log in. We're going to call you on your cell phone. And if someone's there, it's okay to say, hey, I'm busy right now. Can I call you back? Versus trying to talk and code and everything else. So we key them up for all the things that could happen. Or if someone asks you, are you selling your business? Well, if you're not selling, you go, what are you talking about? Yeah, everything's for sale. You want to buy it? But when you are going through that process, all of a sudden they say that, it's like deer in headlights. They don't know what to say. So it's just some of the training and things that we can do to help the business owner get through all of those different stages as best as possible.
So listen, Scott, we can talk for hours, you and I, because we've both been doing this for decades. We love talking deals, love talking M&A. But I only have time to hit one more topic, and we're not going to be able to do it justice, really, before I ask you my final two questions. But let's hit it a little bit. So right now, in terms of what you're seeing out there, I mean, and I don't know if there's any particular industries you're seeing that are more active. I don't know if we're seeing, obviously, PE buyers, strategic buyers, owner operators, but, they're all different kind of buyers. I don't know if there's more activity. We obviously have some cost of capital headwinds and things like that. Just hit, and again, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to cover the whole thing. But any highlights or trends or things that, that you're seeing that would be interesting in terms of what's going on in the marketplace? And we're recording this in late February of more.
Yeah, I would say the market's coming back. We obviously it was record. 2020 was what it was, but by July, the M&A market was warming up, and it was crazy. All of 21 was the craziest year, a record year after 21 years of our existence. And 22, the first half of 22 kind of still had some horsepower, and then we just saw things really slow down. And the second half of 22 rolled into 23, and ironically, almost till like September. And then the fourth quarter for us, in talking, we had another company called Cornerstone International Alliance. We have 27 other M&A firms that all work underneath the same alliance, so we get to talk with all over the country and internationally. And Canada seemed to do well for whatever. Canada's doing great, but the United States, things really slowed down the second half of 22 and most of 23. And then now things are picking back up again. And we're seeing a lot of roll-ups. So where we play in this low middle market space, that's actually where we see the most activity right now, because as you talk about with higher interest rates and just credit tightening, the bigger deals are usually where the banks want to do the bigger deals. They're actually going, nope, there's too much risk in one deal doing deals. It's actually the smaller deal. So if you're a $5 to $50 million revenue company and you're doing 1 to 5, 1 to 10 in EBITDA, there is a ton of interest for your companies, because the strategic buyers are looking there, especially the private companies, but these private equity firms, they might do 1 or 2 private platforms, which are a larger company, but then for that one platform, they might do 5, 10, 15 add-on acquisitions. I mean, that's all in the low middle market space. So like we just did that deal, that $51 million deal, that was their 13th add-on in 4 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And they only did one platform, and so I think that the add-on space, this low middle market space, is going to have legs for quite some time. If interest rates drop in March and April 3 times or whatever they say this in 2024, that's going to throw some fuel, I think, on the fire, because then people go, okay, we're back. Banks, interest rates come down, cost of capital comes down, and debt a little bit, and it all will work itself out. But manufacturing's been strong, a lot of distribution, construction. We just did the deal in road safety and pavement marking because of the $1.2 trillion infrastructure package that got passed by the Fed. So people are like, hey, we're going to get our piece of that for the next 3 to 5 years as that comes through. So there's people getting in on that. Anything tied to the boomer. So a lot of the professional services and physical therapy and hospice and those types of things continue to roll up. It used to be just the dental practices were the big roll up going on, because just because you're a good dentist doesn't mean you're a good business owner. Well, now they figured out that can be in any professional services. And what's probably the most unique in the last 5 years is 10 years ago, you couldn't give away an HVAC or a plumbing company or roofing company. Now, those things, just like the dental office, just because you're a really good roofer doesn't mean you're a really good business owner. So now the roofing companies and the HVAC and the plumbing and the landscaping companies, those are all rolling up like crazy right now. So that would be, there's a lot of spots. I would say trucking is one industry that's kind of got beat up pretty bad. But for the most part, it's been pretty good across the board.
Love it. Love it. So before I ask my final question, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about how people can find out more about you. And I know we didn't really have time you mentioned the movie, you mentioned the book. We didn't get time to really delve into them. Yeah, use this opportunity to tell us a little bit about those things as well, and people, where people can find those resources.
Yeah. So what we created was, for the business owner, finish strong, sell your business on your terms. And not only the book, it's a simple 130, 140 page book, but I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs. I'm one of them that will read a book, ton of great ideas that put on the shelf and never implemented one of them.
Right.
So here you read a chapter, and then you go in here and do a couple exercises. It might take you 5-10 minutes. But what it does is it helps that business owner start to take real steps in just learning, what are all my exit options? What are the pros and cons of each of those? Maybe my top 2 or 3. Geez, I didn't know that was a possibility. What do I want out of a sale? It's funny because everybody talks about value, but then when you really look at it going, it's like the tip of the iceberg. It's value, but then underneath, what's under the water? Protecting my employees, my legacy, me sticking around for 6 months or sticking around for 5 years. All of these other things that come into what makes a good deal for you. And because there's no right or wrong answer, but it's not always just about value. So helping people reflect on what that is, because again, that's where the people that even sell, Bo Burlingham, we worked with him in the film. He said, so many people still have seller remorse. A lot of times they're just going after the buck, and they don't think about, oh yeah, I got top dollar, but my employee team got wiped out after a year, or whatever it might be, or different things. So it's a holistic approach. So the book you can find on Amazon. Again, it's Finish Strong, and you can't bundle them. So it's Finish Strong, the book, and then Finish Strong, the workbook. Sell your business on your terms. The film, you can go see the film trailer at www.ma for mergers and acquisitions, madecade.com. And you can reach our website is www.cornerstone, and then a dash or a hyphen business.com. So cornerstone-business.com. And if you want to call me, office here, 920-436-9890. Again, everything's confidential. Our goal is to educate business owners and to help them just understand so they can make a well-informed decision on what it is. And we work with a lot of financial advisors as well as the trusted advisors. So a lot of times it's the CPA, the attorney, the wealth management person. And that's really why we created these books, is I've been working with CPAs and financial advisors for now 2 decades. And we found that so many of them are great at what they do, but they're scared to death to have this conversation because they don't know all the answers. So we've created this book and workbook that they buy and then give to their clients and potential clients to help start that conversation and just build that goodwill with the client and create some value. So that's kind of who we are. We work all over the country, so that's not a problem, and would love to help anybody else that we can.
I love it. So folks, if you missed all those amazing resources, they'll be in the show notes as well. Scott, my final question on the podcast is always about my highest value in life, which is freedom. And for me, that means everything, freedom around the world for people from oppression to why I've been an entrepreneur for decades and haven't had a boss. What does freedom mean to you, and how does it impact your life and business?
That's a great question. I think it's probably twofold. One is that freedom is that, 2 years of my life out of 49, almost 50, I was corporate America. I'm not made for me. I wasn't made for it, I should say. So having the freedom to do what I want to do, but really the freedom, the gift that we get to give the business owners is probably, I love helping people and seeing a smile on their face and going, at the closing table with tears, big, tough guys going, I don't know how you did what you did, you and your team, but I couldn't have done this without you. You've changed my life and my kids' lives and my community and my church, whatever it is. That's what gets me up early in the morning. And to be able to help people truly get to their next best chapter of their life. We say, exits always talk about, it's an exit, where at the end, we're just going to sit on a rocking chair now and I'm done. We say exits are just the beginning. Now you have the gift. We hope to give you the gift of both time and money. And that people, to your point, back to your freedom, most people either have a bunch of time with no money to do anything, or a bunch of money, but they're in that rat race, just running. We get them out of that rat race. And I think being able to spend the time, and yes, I get to help people, but then also get to do things like this. I get to coach all three of my kids. I love coaching basketball. So I've got 9 games and 3 tournaments this weekend. So I will have that. That's why we want to do it later in the week, because I won't have a voice on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I'm glad we got this in on a Friday where I still have a voice and just living life to its fullest. So I appreciate your time today, Corey.
I love it. Scott Bushkie, thanks for being such a great guest on the DealQuest podcast.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of DealQuest, where we help you understand how deal-driven growth can be your ticket to freedom. I want to invite you to a unique way to tap into the wisdom and experience of the DealQuest community. The Deal Den is a place where entrepreneurs, high-level executives, and business leaders come together, support each other's growth and success, and share what's working best, as well as what challenges we are facing right now. You will get input not only from me, but from all of our members. We collaborate and serve each other. To join us, go to corykupfer.com/dealden. I'll see you there. I'm Corey Kupfer. Until next week, wishing you the freedom and financial prosperity that I know your DealQuest will bring.